Hey friends, welcome back to another video. I hope you're all excited because behind me I have a bunch of books that I'm hoping to get to this season. Autumn is the time of year where I love reading fantasy and I love all the different magic systems and schools and dark academia and gothic classics, and this year especially I want to revisit some books that I haven't read in a very long time. So I hope you have a warm cup of tea or whatever autumnal drink you're craving, and let's get into the video. I thought about how to structure this video, and I thought the best way to share my TBR with you guys was to just do it by genres. So the very first genre is fantasy. I'm going to try and pick a book that is a fantasy novel just randomly. Which one should I go for? This really stands out. This is a huge one. This is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell or Norrell by Susanna Clarke. This is a ginormous fantasy that's over 800 pages long, and it's one that is a classic in the fantasy world, and one that R.F. Kuang has mentioned at the front that she wished she'd written. Much like my reading experience with Piranesi, I'm going to be into this pretty much not knowing what the story is about. All I know is that it's about these two different magicians who are very different from one another. They're basically the antithesis of each other, and so ensues this like great battle between them. And it's a historical fiction novel set in 1806, and I believe it takes place across England and France. And as I was flicking through the book, I noticed that there are a couple of illustrations which always excites me. Yeah, I'm so excited to pick this one up, but I'm very much intimidated by it as well. Okay, so I need to pick the second book to talk about. That is a fantasy, so let's go for this one. This one is by Joan Harris and it's The Moonlight Market. I have quite high hopes for this book, not only because it has the most beautiful cover with this foiling and is called The Moonlight Market, but I really am intrigued by the premise of this story. One thing that I've noticed about myself is that I love reading books set during the night. So I love it when an author centers their story around nighttime and also the dream world as well. I love those two concepts in general. So in this particular novel, you follow Tom, who is a photographer in London. However, in his pursuit of Vanessa, Tom realizes that there is this whole other world, alternate reality and universe, also a London but just a different reality. And here there is the Moonlight Market that opens only during moonlight hours, and I believe that there is like a prince who's missing and there's magic involved somehow. So I hope that it's written really beautifully and hopefully lyrically as well, although I've never read a Joanne or Joan Harris novel before, so we'll see how it goes. And then another fantasy novel that I can't not talk about is Catabasis by R.F. Kuang. I've been harping on and on to my friends how much I really want to pick up Catabasis, so I'm so happy that I finally own a copy. This one is a Waterstones exclusive edition, so it has lovely end papers and this gorgeous sprayed edge, and I don't normally care too much for sprayed art, but I feel like this one really adds to the cover, so yeah. I'm so excited. This book is about Alice, who's studying at the University of Cambridge, and there she's studying to become the best in the field of analytic magic. Now Alice needs the help of her professor, but her professor has ended up in hell, and so this entire story takes place where Alice and her rival Peter travel to the depths of hell and try to save the professor's soul. I think there's going to be like an enemies to lovers kind of romance trope. It's supposed to be another dark academia novel, and I loved Babel, so I feel like Catabasis is sort of like in the same dark academia world as Babel. Of course, it's different stories and different universities, but I'm hoping for a similar atmosphere. Now, another fantasy book that I would love to get to is called The Book Eaters by Sunyi Dean, and I haven't seen too many people talk about it, even though I feel like the premise is really mind-boggling. In this book, there are the book book eaters, as the title suggests, and they basically eat stories and legends and myths from books. However, you follow one particular family where one of the kids has ended up becoming a mind eater, which means that instead of eating stories, he basically eats people's souls. I have a feeling that this book is going to get quite dark, so I don't really know what to expect from it, but I am really looking forward to seeing how the author plays out this entire theme of eating books. I feel like that's such an interesting concept that I've never read about. So that is the Book Eaters. Okay, next up is a book that I don't currently own, but I am 100% going to be purchasing it because I'm just so excited for it, and it's by Rebecca Ross, who is one of my favorite authors, and it's called Wild Reference. I have incredibly high hopes for this book, and I've only heard great things about it so far. Rebecca Ross writes in the most gorgeous lyrical way, and she always creates these beautiful romances as well, and I'm so excited to get my hands on a copy. It looks absolutely stunning. In this story, you follow Matilda, who is the youngest goddess of her clan and therefore has like the most humble magic, and that magic is messenger magic, and so essentially her magic is to do with writing and sending letters. But then in the mortal world, you have Vincent, who's been dreaming of Matilda for a while now, except for the fact that the two have never met before. Remember how I was talking about how much I adored reading about the nighttime and also dream worlds? I feel like this book is going to combine the two of those together. I actually went past a Waterstones this morning and found a copy of Wild Reference, and it's absolutely stunning. It's a hardback, but I think I'm going to have to purchase it because it just looks so gorgeous and I really want to read it. And another book that I want to get to that also explores this magic system of letter writing is by Emily J. Taylor, and it's called The Otherwhere Post. I read Hotel Magnifique by the same author a while back, and I really enjoyed it, although my memory of it is quite fuzzy because it was a few years ago. But in this story, you follow a girl called Maeve who basically lives in secret and in hiding, and the reason for that is because her father was said to have committed these really deadly crimes. However, one day Maeve receives a letter saying that her dad was innocent, and so of course that changes everything, and in order to investigate, she decides to learn the art of scriptomancy, which is like a magic system based on writing letters. I really love epistolary formatted novels, and having that sort of personal letter writing touch is just something that I really enjoy reading. And this is another book, just like the Book Eaters, where I'm interested in seeing how the magic system will unfold. This next book is called The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak, and I know that this is a real classic. I've never read it before, and I'm really interested to read it because it's supposed to be narrated from Death's point of view, but it's a historical fiction novel set during Nazi Germany, and you follow a 9-year-old girl called Liesel who basically steals books. Other than that, it doesn't actually say too much about the book, so I'm assuming that you're supposed to go into it not knowing too much about the story. I actually thrifted this book a couple of years ago and I never got to it, so I really should read it because I love interesting POVs, so the fact that Death narrates this book is going to be a real interesting one for sure. Another book on my TBR that is a new release is by T. Kingfisher, and it's called Hemlock and Silver. This is supposed to be a retelling of Snow White. I feel like T. Kingfisher is one of those authors who I kind of have a love-hate relationship with because she creates these cozy stories that always have like a dark element running across it, and I really love the atmosphere of her books. However, the reason why I hesitate to say I adore all of her books is because oftentimes when I'm reading her novels, I find myself getting really bored. I think it's because the pacing of her novels tend to be a lot slower, and I feel like normally I would really like that, except there tends to be like a tedious element for me personally, which makes me really sad because I know she's so beloved in the fantasy world. But T. Kingfisher's novels always have the best plot lines, and they're always books and stories that I would love to read. So like I said, it's a Snow White retelling, but you follow Ahya, who is a healer, and in order to try and come up with antidotes, she regularly drinks poison. One day she receives a letter from the king asking if she can offer her help to save his dying daughter Snow. With this book, I'm really hoping that there's going to be like a cottagecore element to it, because Ahya is supposed to be this herb obsessed healer, and I know that T. Kingfisher also has the most whimsical cast of characters, so I'm intrigued to see what kind of funny characters we're going to meet in this book too. So hopefully I'll enjoy this one a little bit more than some of the other books that I've read from her. The next book that I really want to get to is another new release, and it's called Immortal Consequences by Ivy Marie. I believe this is a YA dark academia novel, and it's got a magic system set at school, which obviously is something that I love reading about in autumn. But you follow 6 students who attend the Blackwood Academy, and this school is not like any other school because it's sort of like an in-between interim state between life and death, or the afterlife. I don't know too much about this book, but I believe that there is like a trial that happens every 10 years where scholars and students get picked or nominated to enter, and only one person can come out winning. The book is said to be for fans of the Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake, and I've really enjoyed the academic nature and the different cast of characters in that book, although I think I stopped reading it halfway through the second book in the series. But with this book, I'm really hoping that there's going to be a really good like character dynamic between the 6 different students. Another romantasy book that I would love to get to is called The Irresistible Urge to Fall for Your Enemy, I think, and it's by Bridget Knightley, I believe. But the reason why this book is so high up on my TBR this year is because the lovely Kath from Cups and Thoughts told me that she thought I would love this book, so I am even more giddy about reading it. I have very, very little knowledge about this book, and that seems to be the case about a lot of these books that I want to read. But I think you follow like a scholarly healer and an assassin, and there's like slow burn enemies to lovers kind of romance. I love a good enemies to lovers trope, and hopefully this one is executed really well. Oh, I almost forgot, I need to talk about Cat Dragon. This is another fantasy, or like a cozy fantasy, and you follow a witch who has like a pumpkin patch and owns her own farm, and she's pretty much trying to enter the annual harvest festival. It's supposed to have a really wholesome romance in it, and cat dragons, and also talking pumpkins, so I'm very much looking forward to Cat Dragon. Okay, now moving on to classics. Oh, we have a lot of gothic classics over here, but I'll start with Bram Stoker's Dracula. Unfortunately, I haven't read very many gothic classics, I don't think, in my lifetime, and so Dracula is one of them, and it's one that I really would love to get to this year because it's been sitting on my shelf for a bit too long now. It says on the back that when Jonathan Harker visits Transylvania to help Count Dracula purchase a London house, he makes horrifying discoveries in his client's castle. This is definitely going to be like a Halloween read. I feel like it's going to be perfect for then. Another essential gothic classic that I've yet to get to is Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights. A lot of my friends who didn't go to my school studied Wuthering Heights at school, but my school didn't, and maybe it's a good thing that we didn't actually, because maybe I wouldn't have liked it so much at school. But it's one that sort of managed to escape me every year, so hopefully 2025 is the year I'll finally read Wuthering Heights. And I've been hearing a lot of mixed things about it, but I know that there is another adaptation coming out next year with Margot Robbie in it. So I feel like before I watch that movie, I have to read the classic, and also it's just been one that I've been wanting to get to every single autumn. Now this one is another gothic classic. It's The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and I bought this particular book in Edinburgh. I believe that I walked into like an independent publisher that published this particular edition, so I don't think it's available anywhere else. It's from John Kay Press. I love the art, and I also love that it's like this gorgeous plum book. I feel like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is one of those things that a lot of people reference in popular culture, so I'd love to finally be able to understand the full scope of its meaning. Next up is the romance genre, and I only have one contemporary romance that I really would love to read this autumn. I was about to say summer, but it's called Falling Like Leaves by Misty Wilson. This book is said to be like a Gilmore Girls meets Jenny Han, and it's a YA romance story all about a girl called Ellis who is from the Big Apple, and she ends up getting stuck in this very quaint, cozy town called Bramble Falls. And while she she's there, she ends up bumping into her old best friend who is like the local barista, and she also somehow manages to like get roped into the annual like sort of big autumn festival that celebrates everything autumnal. So with this particular book, I'm really hoping that there's going to be like a cute romance, but most importantly that cozy small town atmosphere that you get from Stars Hollow. This book cover is basically what autumn dreams are made of. It looks like the perfect autumn rom-com, and I'm not gonna lie guys, I was really disappointed when I saw the UK version of it. I'll pop it here now so you can see the difference between the UK and the US edition. I just feel like the US edition captures something really wholesome about autumn with the colour palette and the art style. So if I can get my hands on the US edition somehow, I'm going to try really hard, but if not, I'll just have to make do with the UK one. But moving on to like the cozy mystery and crime fiction genre is a book that you guys recommended to me the most in the latest video I uploaded, and it is Shady Hollow by Juno Black. This book has actually been on my TBR for years, and every year I see people talk about it and people reading it, and every year I'm like, that looks so cozy and autumnal. But it's just one of those books that's also managed to escape me every single year. So this year is the year that I really want to get into my cozy mysteries and read Shady Hollow. I believe you follow a fox called Vera Vixen, and Vera is like the local reporter of this cozy woodland community. However, a toad turns up dead one day, and so Vera basically tries to investigate what really happened. But I mean, a town filled with woodland creatures sounds so adorable and perfect for autumn, so this is definitely one that I want to pick up. And the other book that I want to read in this genre is definitely more the crime section of it, not the cozy mystery, but it's by a Japanese author and it's called The Murder at the Black Cat Cafe. I had never heard of this book or seen it talked about before until I walked inside a Waterstones one day and saw that it was one of their book of the months. I managed to pick up a free bookmark promoting the book, and I mean, the cover is so beautiful as well. I'm really intrigued by it. Despite the fact that I have no idea what it's about, I thought that I would include it in this video because it sounds really perfect for like spooky Halloween vibes. And amidst all of these new releases and books that I would love to read for the first time, I also really want to be able to pick up some books that I've already read before. So this final category is going to be books that I would love to reread this year. There is something so special about being able to revisit a book that you know you loved, or maybe a book that you didn't quite love for the first time round and you're hoping to give a second chance. Now, I forgot to bring my copy of this particular book, but this very book is one that I've been wanting to reread for a very long time. My mind keeps floating back to it and really wants to revisit it, and it's The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I remember absolutely falling in love with the lyrical atmosphere of this story. It's set in a circus, it takes place at night, so I mean it's perfect already. But I also remember at the time being slightly taken aback because it's sort of described as like two magical rivals, and so in my head I thought that there was going to be a lot of heavy fantasy, but it really wasn't. It definitely leans more towards the magical realism side of speculative fiction. But the atmosphere is so perfect for autumn, so hopefully I get to reread it this year. Now, another book that I would love to reread is Hamlet by Maggie O'Farrell. This is another book that I read a couple of years ago, but it's one that I would love to refresh my memory, especially before the new film of it comes out next year. It's a historical fiction novel inspired by Shakespeare's family, particularly focusing on Shakespeare's son Hamlet as well as Shakespeare's wife. I remember even less of this book than The Night Circus, so I almost feel like it's going to be like reading it for the very first time and discovering new things about it that I'd forgotten about. Another book that I'd love to revisit is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, and this is another gothic classic that I absolutely adored a few years ago. I think I might have listened to it as an audiobook, and it's one of the first gothic classics that I've ever read, so it holds a very special place in my heart. Our main character pretty much ends up being haunted by this phantom ghost of her husband's first wife called Rebecca, and Rebecca is sort of the book that's set off this desire for me to read more Gothic classics back in the day. So it's going to be perfect for spooky season and I can't wait to reread it. Then last but not least, we have a book that is absolutely battered because I haven't read it in many years, and it's Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. One of the reasons why this book is so destroyed and tattered is because it's the actual copy that I took to school every single day for like a term during year 8 or year 9 maybe. We read Jane Eyre as part of one of our English classes. I'm not sure if you'll be able to tell in this lighting, but I even highlighted it during lessons, and it's so old that the highlighter ink is fading away now, which is like, oh, so special. It's so special that I still have this copy even after a decade, and I feel like the smell of it and everything, it just takes me back to school. But yes, I haven't read Jane Eyre or picked it up ever since I read it all those many years ago, so I'd love to give it another shot this autumn and fall in love with it all over again. But that is everything that I'd love to get to this autumn. It's a ridiculously ambitious TBR, I know, but I feel like this is a time of year where I really want to dig in and get through as many books as I possibly can. So I don't know, I have a very busy autumn ahead, but I'm hoping that I'll get a chance to read at least maybe half of these books. Let me know in the comments what your most anticipated autumn book is, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next cozy video very soon. Bye friends.